Let's try that again. Hey friends, it's your good friend Tim Campbell Smith, and today we are talking about some of the realities of running a freelance photography business. Nothing in life is easy, especially being a photographer. I'm going to say this, most of these realities are going to sound kind of like doom and gloom and harsh, and I don't want them to sound harsh. I want to get you excited about them and to help manage expectations so that if you are starting out in photography or you're thinking of starting a career in photography, that you realize some of the things you're signing up for. This is based off even just my earliest experiences in photography. Also, though, having mentors who are photographers and hearing from other pro photographers. Also, I did informational interviews learning about photography, and these are some of the things I learned from photographers. Before we go too far, make sure you like and subscribe for all things photography, business, mental health, and life. So some of the realities just right at the gate. One, you're probably going to wonder if you need more gear often. Next, you're going to find you are competing against everyone, everywhere, all of the time. And I'll elaborate on that later. Next, you're going to have to develop your own style. This can be really tough for me right now, especially in my early stages of my photography career. I'm having a blast figuring this out, and we'll talk about that too. Next, you will have to develop crisis plans. Crisis is a little dramatic of a word, but I don't know what other word to use. When things go wrong. Next, you're gonna have to figure out where your work can get displayed. And this is coming from some good business wisdom, so stay tuned for that part. Another weird reality is that you will be judged on things that do not involve your camera or your skill. Your relationship to photography is going to change. And the other big reality is that you're probably running a business. So what does it mean to be an entrepreneur? Okay, so let's start with this reality, the constant wondering if you need new gear. I think this happens to a lot of us because it's the easiest thing that we can look at, that we can point to, and we can say, like, if I do that thing, if I get that thing, my work will improve and I will get paid more. It's so easy to point to and to use and to be able to say that will improve my business. But this might not always be true. I think of something Annie Leibovitz said in her masterclass, which is where she encourages photographers to use one lens, stick with it, figure out what it can and cannot do. Recently, I was thinking, I should go and buy like a $3,000 lens that can do this really cool thing. And a friend of mine who's a professional photographer, and that's his area, it's commercial photography. It was a lens for commercial work. He said, no, that's a very expensive lens. And unless you are absolutely dedicating your business to that type of photography, don't. And he actually showed me how a couple of my lenses can do what his lens can do. Now, it's not, it's kind of like a workaround solution, but it works. I didn't need to go buy that new lens. If you can learn what your lenses can do, editing effects, and you get better at Lightroom or Photoshop or whatever editing software, you may find you don't always need a new lens. Next, you are competing against everyone, everywhere, all of the time. Partially because, and the marketer in me kind of looks to like global trends, like we live in an image-rich society. We have images all around us. You're looking at images here. On YouTube, you're seeing images through thumbnails. And then you go to any other social media platform, you're seeing images. So for those images to be there, everyone's creating those images. So you're competing against people who have figured out like how to take a good photo on their phone. You're competing against, and I can't even make this up, I read about this happening to someone on Reddit, competing against people who bought a camera for fun, and then their sister said, hey, you've got a camera, can you photograph my wedding? All because someone bought a camera for fun. You're competing against people with a camera, which is different than a professional photographer. And a professional photographer once said that to me, and I thought that was fascinating. I liked her definition where she said a professional photographer is someone whose 100% sole income comes from photography. She also went on to say, it comes with like a dedication to the craft versus people who pick up a camera, offer it once in a while. A beautiful thing about photography is, and actually entrepreneurship in general, is that you decide how much you work and how you work and what does your work look like. And a lot of people who go into photography choose to do it part-time, which means you're competing against people with cameras who are not professional photographers. Barrier to entry in photography is low between the cameras, which are becoming cheaper, more accessible, but also editing software and editing platforms. So you're competing against everyone all of the time. The next reality you have to wrestle with is developing your own style and your own sense of style in your photography. So at the time of recording in 2024, there's actually it's funny because I learned about this from a marketing perspective, this crisis of bland content where visual content often looks the same. So the first one I'm going to come for is I call it the polite white lady aesthetic, which is your beiges, your browns, your creams, and your whites. Then we're also getting into this new trend of oversaturated colors and images with dense color. Or the third very common trend I see in photography and photographic images are these bold and dramatic black and white portraits. Do you want to follow that? Do you want to master that? Do you want to compete in that space? Or do you want to do something differently entirely? This is where it comes down to developing your style. Your own style also comes down to what do you like to photograph? How do you photograph it? This is what makes your work unique and makes it your own. Think of any famous photographer, Jimmy Chin, Annie Leibovitz, Mary Ellen Matthews. They all have a unique style and a sense of style. You should too. The next reality of running a photography business involves crisis planning, or knowing what to do when things go wrong. So this might involve everything from technical side, like having a camera that has the what's the term, where it has 2 memory card slots, because what if one memory card or card slot fails and doesn't record any of the images? Well, you can't really ask, for example, a couple to redo their wedding. Then it might also involve clients. What if your clients don't like the shots you got? What if you didn't deliver what they wanted? And then you have to figure out, how are you going to handle this? So some ways that you can handle when things go wrong is having ironclad contracts, offering discounts or additional freebies, reshoots, and plans for how to handle negative reviews. Next, another reality, and especially if you're doing, I'm going to say the non-traditional or the not as popular forms of photography, is to learn where to display your work. So if you want to be doing landscapes, fine art, travel photography, you've got to find places to display your work so that people can see it, be exposed to it, maybe make you some money, and go from there. Because remember, just appealing on social media and trying to get people to, frankly, hire you or buy your images just from social media is pretty unrealistic these days, because everybody's creating content all of the time. But when your work gets displayed somewhere, it's kind of social proof. It's a badge of confidence where someone else has said, yes, this work is so beautiful, it is so appealing, it is so well done, that we will display it. Next, another reality of running a freelance photography business is that you will be judged, and I'm using the word judged here intentionally. You will be judged on things that do not involve your camera or your skill. This includes things like your personality. People want to work with a photographer who they will jive with, who they have a good relationship with. So that's something to think about. There's your professionalism. Did you show up on time? What were you wearing?
Which is something I've heard people comment on photographers. I frankly cannot believe that's a topic of conversation, but I digress.
And then in your portfolio and your bodies of work, your inclusions and your exclusions. So for example, do you have samples with diverse models? Have you used other people's photographs as your own?
Which, again, I cannot believe is a trend.
When you're photographing people, even something as delicate as asking, can I touch you? When you're trying to get them to pose a certain way. Do you display pricing? Did you, offer a collaborative Pinterest board to build ideas before the shoot? These are things that people are thinking about when they think about you as a photographer. Another reality, and this is very close to me, it hits very close to home as a digital marketer, is the fact that you will have to run a business. Most people go into any business because they love doing that thing. Bakers go into baking because they love baking. Photographers go into photography because we love taking photos. But you also have to accept the reality that you are running a business. You are an entrepreneur. Running a business means having to do everything, like manage the finances, doing sales, running your own digital marketing. If you look into research into why businesses fail, a commonly cited reason is inadequate management. When you're a freelancer, that's you running the business. So I always recommend learn to fall in love with running a business and the concept and the practice of running a business. The final reality with starting a freelance photography business is that your relationship to photography is going to change. Especially if you originally did photography because you loved it and now it's becoming a business. That relationship to photography, it may go away so that you don't love it anymore. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but you don't love it the same way. It may become smaller, it may become bigger. You may become more obsessed with it. You may have to work harder and a little more intentionally at loving it. You may have to become more curious about it and try new things. But that relationship to photography is going to change when you are doing it as a business. My call to action for you is to have an intentional relationship to photography. And those are the key things you should know about running a photography business. That relationship is going to change. You are responsible for everything. Things will go wrong. You will have to find your own style and places where you can display your work. And you'll constantly have to wrestle with, do I need more gear? Comment and let me know, where are you at with your photography journey, or do any of these realities jump out at you? As always, make sure you like and subscribe for all things mental health, photography, business, school, and life. Otherwise, we'll chat soon. Bye for now.